life can be a sweeping widescreen epic, a cliffhanging soap opera, and a side-splitting sitcom. Sometimes all in the one episode. The Guest Room with Leon Compton on 105.7 ABC Darwin and 783 Alice Springs.
I wonder which of those it'll be this morning. Whatever it is, I hope it's enjoyable for you. I reckon we're going to meet a pretty interesting fella today. Greg Meyer's got a few stories under his belt. As a 22-year-old on a drizzly Adelaide morning, the year was 1980, he looked around and he said to his mates, "Come on fellas, let's go somewhere warm." The next day they got in the car, they took off, and the car was pointed north. Greg washed up in the territory with $30 in his pocket, and since then he's ridden the highs and the lows. He managed to do some time in prison after being busted with 5 kilos of marijuana in his possession. He's paved half the territory, and he's now one of our most unconventional and one of our most successful businessmen. You're going to meet him after this little offering by Jimmy Barnes. It's 11:06.
Working hard to make a living, bringing shelter from the rain. A father, son, left to carry on through denim in his veins. Oh, he's a working class man. Oh. Well, he's a steel-tied disciple. He's a legend of his kind, running like a cyclone across the wide Midwestern sky. Oh, he's a working class man. Oh, believes in God and Elvis. Oh, he gets out when he can. Oh, he did his time in Vietnam, still mad at Uncle Sam. Oh, he's a simple man with a heart of gold in a complicated land. Oh, 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 he's a working class man. Not bad, lads. Well, he loves a little woman, but someday he'll make his wife, saving all the overtime for the one love of his life. He ain't worried about tomorrow, 'cause he just made up his mind. Life's too short for burning bridges. I take it one day at a time. Oh, he's a working class man. Yeah. Oh, well, he's a working class man. Ah, yeah. Yes, he is. Well, he's a working class man. Working class man, yeah, ah yeah, working class man. I got to tell the working class man, working class man, ah yeah, working class man. I got to tell the working class man, working class man. Working class man, I got to tell the working class man, working class, oh, a working class man, ah yeah, working class man.
And there we are, Jimmy Barnes live and acoustic at 10 past 11, 105.7 ABC Darwin, 783 in Alice Springs. It is the guest room for another day, and that is the first song selection from the fella in front of me this morning. It's hard to believe that he started out as a jockey. It's not impossible to believe he started out as a jockey. Perhaps it takes a little bit of imagination. Today's is more of the vision that Barnesy, I think, had in mind when he sang that song. In fact, the person who suggested him for the guest room today, Chris Killian, reckons that no matter how high-flying our guest becomes, he'll never get out of his steel-capped boots. Let's say good morning to Greg Meyer, Territory businessman. Greg, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Leon. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Greg. Very well indeed. So is that who you are, the working class man?
Well, yeah, but I'd sort of wouldn't hint too much on the steel cap boots. I've been renowned for years to be shorts and thongs man. But, of course, the new work health laws sort of don't allow that anymore. But, yeah, I'm sort of just a worker at heart and, yeah, I've had a lot of fun.
What do you got on your feet for this interview?
Thongs.
Thongs.
Shorts and thongs.
Like the person doing the interview. Thongs, the best way to go.
That's it.
In Radio Land. Look, how did the horses go with you on top of them, just out of interest?
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, I was brought up with horses. My father trained horses and we sort of had horses all our lives. So, you know, as a young fella, my love was the horses, but unfortunately, the body grew too much, and I had a few early rides, and I think I rode 3 winners, and then I had a little stint over the jumps, and decided that wasn't sort of a long-term thing. So, yeah, basically, I moved aside and headed to other things.
You still ride to this day?
Oh no, I haven't ridden for years, but I could. I mean, I can ride. I mean, it's like a push bike. You never forget.
Mm.
Yeah, you know, you sort of, yeah. If I, I mean, I've never really thought about jumping on a horse, not lately.
I see people doing it out at East Point in Darwin. I'm sure it's pretty popular in Alice Springs as well. You could.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, something I've never really thought of doing. You know, so maybe in the future I might one day hop back on one.
You left school pretty early. What did you think when you left school? What did you think your career path would be?
Well, sort of, I was pretty smart at school, probably too smart for my own good, and school was sort of fairly boring to me. So sort of just before I turned 15, it was sort of a mutual decision between myself and the school that I don't come back anymore. So that's sort of when I got into the horses. And from there, I sort of done that for a couple of years. And because originally I was brought up in the country, and then we shifted from the country into the city, and then basically went back to the country for a while.
Was that with Dad, with work?
Well, Dad and Mum shifted earlier than I went down. And then they come back, and then I went back down with them to work on a station for a while. And then they shifted to another place, and I decided to go back to Adelaide, so I went back and lived with my grandmother.
So were you a country boy or a city boy?
Sort of 50-50, eh? You know, I'm a Keith Urban type. Just better looking.
Tell us about the day, Greg, that you decided that the drizzle was coming down. You decided it was too cold. You wanted to find somewhere warmer. Do you remember it?
Yeah, well, me and a mate in Adelaide, we're working in Adelaide, and we're actually working in a landfill site on machinery, like pushing over rubbish and covering up, and it was a typical Adelaide winter's day. You know, it was 30 knots of wind, freezing cold and drizzling rain. And we just come up for smoko, and I just said, mate, I've had a gutful of this. I said, let's just go somewhere different where it's warm. So basically, within 2 days, we were gone. Left my girlfriend at the time to pack up the house. We didn't even wait for that. Just sort of said, well, you know, you pack up the house and we're out of here. We'll find somewhere, and when we find somewhere, we'll give you a call. And same with his girlfriend, and off we chuffed.
So who was the mate? Who was in the passenger
A guy
seat?
named Greg Hughes. He's still here. He's in town here. He's got a business in town here. He's got a couple of daughters, and yeah, he's still here. And both our girlfriends now, they have a business of their own, a beach bum shop at Fanny Bay. And yeah, so yeah, it's a long way from the cold wintry day at the dump at Port Noarlunga in Adelaide.
Wow, so your girlfriends forgave you for just leaving them in the lurch and saying you can pack up and follow us if you want?
Yeah, probably maybe they might have been glad to get rid of us for a while. Who knows? The boys used to play up a bit in those days.
Where did your path take you? Where did you get to on this road trip?
Well, you sort of got to see the scenario to it. At the time I had a 1971 Mach 1 Mustang with all the good gear on it, a rocket ship. So we decided that we'd take the Mustang, and then we thought, well, we need accommodation. So my uncle had this little teardrop caravan about 12 foot long made out of like masonite. It was just put it this way, it was probably the first one after the tent. I mean, it had spoke wheels, and so we've hooked this thing on the back of the Mustang and off we've gone.
So you've got this very cool car with a very dodgy-looking caravan on the back.
That's it. And from there, things didn't start well. I think we run out of petrol the first day, and sort of sent my mate off to get petrol. And I think he come back about 2 hours later, half cut, in a ute with all these blokes. They were all blind. So, and I think that day we lobbed in Dubbo in New South Wales.
Okay, now hang on. From Adelaide, you're not heading towards Darwin at this point. Where
No.
was your path taking
Oh,
you?
we were heading wherever the car pointed, sort of thing. So anyway, we finished up the first day in Dubbo, and we thought, right, so we go to a caravan park. First night in Dubbo, we thought we'll go and have a drink somewhere. So we finished up in an RSL club. And, of course, both of us were 70 blokes and long hair, the full bit. And we've gone into this RSL club, and, of course, they had poker machines, and we'd never sort of had much to do with them coming from South Australia at the time. So we started playing the poker machines, and we started winning a little bit of money, and next thing you know, I get a tap on my shoulder, and the guy says, mate, you got to go. And I said, why? What have we done? He said, the club president won't allow your type in here. And I said, well, what's that type, mate? He said, long hair, not allowed to have long hair in the club. I said, you're joking, mate. This is 1980. But out we went. See you later.
Righto, got to go out. Where did you fit in? Tell us about the first place that you got to in the road trip where you thought, we're welcome
the next
here.
day, the next day we leave, I think it was Dubbo or wherever, we left, or it might have been the day before. Anyway, we were halfway between Parkes and Forbes, driving along, minding our own business, and next thing you know, we come over this hill and there's a long straight, and there's this police car parked across the road with a copper standing in the middle of the road waving his hands. And I thought, Jesus. So we pull over. So he comes up to the window and he said, asked us for identification, what we were doing and where we were going. And I said, what's all this about? He said, the copper back in the previous town radioed through and said he'd seen you and got us to check yous out. And there was only two of us in the car, but I had my dog. And he said, well, where's the third bloke? And I said, there ain't no third bloke, mate. He said, well, the bloke reckons he's seen three heads. And then what he did is he's sort of seen the head of the dog in the back window. So anyway, we got through that and sort of continued on our merry way. And I think, a couple of days later, we finished up in Queensland. I think it might have been in Warwick or Gim. Anyway, it was deliverance country. In the 80s, it was like deliverance country. And we sort of decided that wasn't the place for us. And my sister-in-law was up in Darwin, so I said to me, mate, well, let's go to Darwin. So we then proceeded to head to Darwin.
With the Masonite teardrop caravan and the Mach 1 Mustang.
Mate, with the Masonite the things that caravan, because being young fellas and stupid, and that's what we were, young fellas and stupid. I remember we were coming into Bundaberg. We're heading up and coming into Bundaberg, and we're just cruising along nice and easy, sitting on probably about 50 miles an hour then or whatever it was, and not doing nothing stupid. And two young blokes and a girl come up next to us, and they were in a HQ GDS Monaro V8, and they've sort of come up next to us, overtaken us. And they've sort of got next to me and they've sort of given us a bit of a laugh and a bit of lip and, all this sort of crap, and they sort of took off. And, of course, being an idiot,
the temptation, surely.
Being an idiot, as I was, I said to me, mate, I'm not having this. So I after them. So we've followed them down the highway, and at 100 mile an hour, I've put the indicator on and overtook them towing the caravan. But the funny part was, as we were chasing him, I see little strips of the caravan flying off. So, yeah. So we finished up then, staying the night in Bundaberg, and, yeah, then we continued on.
Wow. I'm not sure the engineers ever tested that caravan to 100 miles an hour.
No, and then I think we got to Mount Isa, and my mate says to me, "Oh, one of the caravan tyres," he said, "Oh, look," he said, "it's just about buggered. We better put the spare on." And I said, "Well, I haven't got a spare." And he goes, "Why didn't you bring a spare?" I said, "Well, mate, I didn't expect to get a flat tyre." So, you know, it was a pretty hasty sort of... anyway, we finished up in Darwin.
It sounds like a pretty loose road trip. Greg, and you sound like quite the optimist. I think is what we can divine from all of this.
That's it, you know. I mean, sort of at that time, it was like most young fellas, you know, sort of live for today, don't worry about tomorrow.
One of the thing that's really cool about the story that you've just told is that you're still good mates with the fella who was in the passenger seat.
Still best mates, yeah.
The girlfriends that you left behind to pack up the places and both of your wives.
I can't think how long we were up in Darwin, but I know when I lobbed to Darwin, I had $30 left in my pocket. We finished up staying at the famous Shady Glen Caravan Park, which most first people, and then I think we shifted out to the Howard Springs Caravan Park. And we were sort of living in the caravan and in tents. That's when and then of course the wet season come, and you know, a tent in the wet season in Darwin is not choice. So then we finished up renting a house at Nightcliff. But the girls drove up when we got up here. The girls they decided to come up, and my missus had a 1970 Escort panel van.
Sweet. In yellow?
It was in iridescent green.
The Geminis later became that colour.
Yeah, well, this was specially painted in the iridescent green. Anyway, of course, what people have got to remember, that is when the road from Port Augusta basically to the border was dirt. But they drove this little Escort all the way up with a couple of dogs and everything else and come to Darwin to join us. And that's how we got here.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
And the rest is history.
Look, we're going to play some music because you've chosen some really good music. Let's have some Bob Marley, and then we'll get the story off you about how you met your wife, because I'm told that it must be told at a pizza bar somewhere. But these are all details to come. Greg Meyer, my guest this morning on 105.7 ABC Darwin, 783 in Alice Springs, 22 past 11. On ABC Local Radio right around the Northern Territory. Bob Marley, Is This Love? My guest this morning is Greg Meyer. In a moment we'll find out why he picked that for us after this.
Jam in the Wet.
The cream of top-end talent are performing a series of cabaret-style sessions at the Darwin Entertainment Centre throughout the Wet.
This Saturday night, Cooper Black, Blast Corp along with Red Plum and Snow will light up the stage from 8.
Jam in the Wet is programmed by Music NT and proudly supported by 105.7 ABC Darwin.
Greg Meyer, my guest this morning. It's 27 past 11. Greg, let's talk about how you met your wife in a pizza bar, which sounds very 1970s.
Well, yeah, it's sort of. When I say a pizza bar, what it was, the front of the place was a pizza bar, the rear of the place was like a nightclub. And I used to work on the door there. And I sort of had known her before that. And, you know, when you work on the door of these places, you know, like any young bloke, mate, you know, you put the hard word on everyone that comes through it, you know, there's no harm in trying. So, so that's how I sort of met her.
You're working on the door. What were you doing? Bouncing?
Yeah.
From jockey to bouncing in 3
mate,
years?
Yeah.
You're an angry jockey.
Oh, no, not, you know, no, don't, you know, not real angry, but, you know.
What's your preferred method for sorting out trouble, Greg?
That depends. Yeah, well, most people that know me say I have no tact at all, but, you know, in those days, it was sort of, you know, basically don't take no crap from nobody and that's it. These days I'm going to try to be a bit more diplomatic, but yeah.
How important was it when you made your way to Darwin to have a bit of front about you?
Yeah, it's changed a lot. You know, it's changed a lot. I mean, you know, when the old hotels were going, you know, the Berrima, the Winnelli, the Nightcliff, you know, Limbs, the Cage Bar, and that, it was a lot different. I mean, you know, if you got in the blue with someone, you got in the blue with somebody, it was all over. You know, you didn't, you know, it's not like nowadays where they're liable to pull a knife or a gun or, you know what I mean? It was sort of, a little bit more, you know, how do you put it, on the friendly side, if you can put it that way. Sort of nowadays, it's not so friendly.
Well, sounds like, I mean, as you know the stories as well as we do about that are coming out of, you know, bars in Alice Springs, bars in Mitchell Street in Darwin. I mean, the chance of somebody breaking a glass over your head sounds like a somewhat modern phenomenon, not unknown in 1980.
Well, no, I was in a bar in Adelaide in my early 20s, and a mate of mine was glassed. You know, that was back in the sort of the mid 70s, the mid to late 70s. So I mean, it's you know, I mean, I just think it's like a fad now or something. You know, I don't like glass, so yeah, I just think it's a pretty low act. Yeah.
What was your first job when you got to Darwin?
First job was at Hume's. I actually worked for them in Adelaide for a while, and basically our port of call was the Winnelli Hotel. That seemed a good place to base ourselves. And Hume's factory was right behind it, and I could sort of hear the pipe machine going. And of course, we had no money, and I said to my mate, "Well, we better go in there and see if we can get a job." And in we went, and we got a job there. So I only stayed there for I don't think it was probably a bit over 12 months, and then got another job truck driving. But my mate stayed there and finished up being factory manager, and then went on to manage another part of the company, and then went out on his own. So, but then I went truck driving. So,
and when you say truck driving, long haul or around town?
I was just doing deliveries around Darwin from the old Besser block factory, and that's basically how I got into paving.
Because one day you pulled up at John Spellman's house, a name known to many Territorians, and what happened?
Well, I've done a delivery to John Spellman's place, and sort of, you know, everyone that back in the sort of early 80s, you know, would know Dick's and the places that John was involved in, and, you know, John was, you know, renowned to be gay or well, whatever, who knows, you know, I didn't ask him, but, you know, rumour has it. So anyway, he had a delivery, and I did the delivery, and he asked me if I knew anybody that could lay the pavers. And of course, I thought this looks easy enough. I'd sort of seen it done in Adelaide, and I said, "Oh yeah, I can do it." So I did that job, And then a couple of his friends wanted work done, and from there it just escalated.
So it wasn't chaos. You did a pretty good job on
No,
John's place.
we sort of figured it out, and I did a pretty good job. So yeah. So from there, I sort of got work word of mouth, and I was working sort of 5 days a week truck driving, and all weekends I was paving, until I got sort of so much work paving that I gave the truck driving away and went on to paving.
And for people who don't know you, maybe they're listening in Alice Springs now, you've run a paving empire.
Yeah, well, actually, I did a job in Alice Springs. I did the Alice Springs Airport. Well, I think we'd done about 11,000 metres around the airport there when they first built the new airport there. So, and I'd done a lot of work out at Yalara as well, in the last couple of years. We were down there last year doing the new Sunrise viewing car park, and so yeah, I get around a bit.
Sometimes when you've got a job on at home, it's so daunting, you just don't really want to get it started, or you'll get started and you'll be spooked by it and it'll sit there for weeks and months on end. Have you ever had a job so big that you just got a bit spooked by it?
Well, I don't say I got spooked. I mean, when Robinson Barracks first started, we won the first section out there, and I think the first section was about 33,000 metres. And of course, in those we were laying them by hand, and
33,000 metres, for those of us who don't sort of live square metres.
Well, it's about 3 acres.
You had to put down 3 acres of bricks.
Yeah. So we sort of started it, and we would have probably got halfway through, I suppose. And I thought,
how long did that take you, and how many people?
Oh, I had about 20 people on. I can't remember how long it took us, but it's especially we started in the build up. And I know, I had guys come out, beg to start, give them a job, and I'd give them a job and they'd be gone in 2 hours, So, yeah, we went through a few labourers, let me tell you. So I sort of thought there's got to be an easier way to do this. And I had a conversation with a guy from Sydney, and he told me that he'd been to Europe and he'd seen machines that lay the pavers, that pick them up and lay them. And from there, I sort of chased it up and I bought my first machine.
So, what, you load the bricks into the back?
No, it takes the bricks off the pallet.
Yep.
It picks up the whole layer on the pallet.
I'm imagining a robot sort of going... Tunk,
No. It's a grab that sort of basically grabs the whole top row of the pavers and places them down and interlocks them with the square that you've laid previous.
Don't I need sand in the middle of the pavers,
Yeah,
or do I want them rock
afterwards.
solid?
You do that afterwards. We have a screeded bed that we lay on, and then once they're laid, we cut them in, compact them, and then put a fine sand on them.
And how are they looking, these pavers at Robertson Barracks?
Still as good as the day we put them there.
So that's 3 acres. And then what happened?
Well, I got to know he was a major in the army out there, because Robinson Barracks was pretty primitive then. There was sometimes you couldn't get out there because the road was so badly cut up. You'd get bog going out there. So one of the early guys was this major, and one day he come over with a plan, and it was sort of the plan of the whole base. And he sort of said, well, this is where you are. This is what's got to be done. And it was sort of mind-boggling. So in the finish, I think we've done pretty well about 800,000 square metres out there.
In acres, that is?
In acres, that's about 80.
80 acres of paving. Have you got, excuse me all for using a stereotype, is there some Greek blood in you? Do you look at grass, any sort of wildlife, and think, I'd like to concrete or pave this?
Well, I once asked this. This is a true story. I know a lot of people in the building, and especially the Greeks, because they're out on site on most sites where we are. And one day, I asked one of the concreters, I said, "How come you Greek blokes don't pave?" And his answer was, "Oh, mate, it's too hard." He said, "That's too much hard work." So yeah, they're smart. They were smart, but yeah, it is. If you're laying by hand now, it's backbreaking work. Yeah.
How is the back?
Yeah, good. No, believe it or not, I've only ever had one claim for a back injury through all my guys over the years, and I'd hate to think how many guys I've employed. A lot. So, but yeah, so we're still doing. I still do a lot of. I'm mainly only commercial pave now. I have a yard that I sell pavers out of, and a lot of those are sold to other paving companies, so I really can't compete against them in the domestic market, so we only really do, commercial jobs.
Why would you pave if I'm building something? Why would I pave rather than concrete it?
Well, in the commercial side, paving's a lot stronger than concrete and bitumen. It lasts longer. No maintenance. You can get into it if you have to. I'm sort of really disappointed a bit in Darwin because it's just gone concrete city. Everything's concrete. Driveways, you go down these suburbs, the new suburbs of Lyme, and every single house is the same. Every place is the same. Same concrete driveway, same this, same that. I mean, you go into town here and everything's, exposed aggregate concrete. It looks good when you first put it down, but, we paved them all here. And I mean, the mall still looks pretty good, but, I think what happens is that people get set in their ways in government. I mean, that's the way we do it. That's the way we've done it for years. And
I think in Darwin there's a tendency to do it the cheapest way possible as well. That people perhaps think, I'll just get this done rather than I'll get it done and worry about how I'm going to have to go with it in 50 years' time.
Yeah, well, that's probably a lot to do with it, But then long term, like the army, for instance, they'd have nothing else but paving. It's a proven thing, when you're running 75-ton tanks over it, and you have no problem with it. Why, So yeah, so I don't know where the industry's going, but things change. What's not good this year's better next year. So
you're on 105.7 ABC Darwin 783 in Alice Springs. Greg Meyer, paver, is in the guest room today talking about his life and times. Greg, you've done a stretch in prison.
Yeah. You all got to try something, don't you?
You were caught with 5 kilos of marijuana.
Yes.
What were you doing with that?
Partying pretty hard.
Partying?
Probably, a time in my life where, I don't know, you sort of get into these things. I've never been sort of a big drinker. It was just, I don't know, one of those things that just happens.
And was it grown locally or was it imported from somewhere else?
It was grown locally, yeah.
Right.
So,
Can you tell us the story about being busted?
Yeah. My missus used to run a smoko van, and we used to get up like at 4:30 in the morning to get everything ready because she'd start her run to be out on her run by 8 o'clock type thing. And this morning there was a knock on the door. I opened up the door, and next thing you know, I was on the floor with a gun up my forehead, and there was numerous police officers around.
How long ago was this?
Oh, God, that was 20-odd years ago, 23 years ago, I suppose.
And what do you get?
85, 86.
And what do you get for being caught with 5 kilos of marijuana?
Well, I went to the magistrates' court, and because of the amount, they handed it up to the Supreme Court, and I went to the Supreme Court. In the first hearing at the Supreme Court, they remanded me in custody. So off to Berrima I went. And I was in Berrima, I don't know, week, 10 days or whatever, and then in between going to my court case, and then I was sentenced and fined $2,000, and home I went.
And did that change you at all? What was that experience like in the context of, a life that you're optimistic about?
Well, it put it this way, it's not a long-term career opportunity that, that being in sort of in lockup, met some interesting people. Some people shouldn't be criminals. You just sort of wonder how dumb some people are. You can sort of, there was one guy in there that stole a checkbook that wrote out checks and deposited it into his own account, and just stupid stuff like that, which you'd sort of think, if you're that dumb, you wouldn't be a criminal. But, these are the sort of things that, there's some interesting people in there.
Did it change the way you lived your life?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. At the time, I wasn't real happy about it, but then sort of afterwards, and as the years have gone on, it's happened. I can't change it. Everyone sort of runs the course of their life. If you could change things, you probably would. That's one thing, I'll probably say, I changed, but I can't, so I just live with it. It doesn't worry me in any way, shape or form. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that, that I feel that should be locked up that aren't, but, I mean, and, it's sort of, how do you put it? It's sometimes a bit hard to take when you see someone that commits a violent crime walk and someone that commits a non-violent crime be jailed. It just, it just doesn't stick real well with me, I mean, it's you see some of these cases where people walk and it's just you just can't fathom how it happens, or the amount of chances they get. So yeah, I mean, but that's the system, and we all got to sort of live by it.
You're on 105.7 ABC Darwin, 783 in Alice Springs. My guest this morning, Greg Meyer, talking about his life and times in the Northern Territory at 17 to 12. Let's have some music. Back with Greg after this. More stories to tell.
My life is brilliant. My life is brilliant. My love is pure. I saw an angel, of that I'm sure. She smiled at me on the subway. She was with another man, but I won't lose no sleep on that, 'cause I've got a plan. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. It's true. I saw your face in a crowded place, and I don't know what to do, 'cause I'll never be with you. Yes, she caught my eye as we walked on by. She could see from my face that I was flying high, and I don't think that I'll see her again, but we shared a moment that will last till the end. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. It's true. I saw your face in a crowded place, and I don't know what to do, 'cause I'll never be with you. La la la, la la la, la 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 la. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. It's true. There must be an angel with a smile on her face when she thought up that I should be with you. But it's time to face the truth. I will never be with you.
James Blunt, You're Beautiful on ABC Local Radio, right around the Northern Territory. It's the guest room, and the person who chose that song, Greg Meyer, local businessman to the Territory, who, well, if you're standing on pavers or looking at pavers in any sort of commercial application now, he may well have bent his back in their name. Greg, you picked that song for us. You get to pick all the music when you come into the guest room. Why'd you pick that?
Oh, that's a bit of a sad thing. Mid last year, a good friend of my son's was killed in a car accident, a young girl. And it was probably the first time that he'd faced someone close to him dying. And the effect that it had on him and his friends was horrific. And it was just sort of, it was just in memory of Kelsey.
we give everyone a questionnaire before you come in to fill stuff out. You talk about the thing that you'd change is the road carnage in the Northern Territory if you could do something about it. And yet we've talked to you about this. You've done some silly things on the roads, as we all have done silly things on the road.
As we all have done. But I mean, the thing is that we're putting cars with huge amount of horsepower in the hands of kids. I think that our driver education before a kid gets a licence needs to increase dramatically, and their removal of their licence to be done at the drop of a hat. I mean, it's like I say to my younger son. If you go out in the car and do something stupid and kill yourself, well, but if you go out in the car and do something stupid and kill your best mate, you got to live with it. You got to live with it. And I mean, nobody wants that dreaded knock. It's the biggest fear of my life.
I was going to say, you've got two
I've
teenage
got two
sons.
boys. One's now 23 and he's got a couple of kids. But to me, that would be the most horrific thing in life, to get that phone call or that death knock. And it's just happening too much up here. And it's something that everyone's got a good look at. I'm now actually, I'm actually the president of the go-kart racing club here in Darwin. And, I see the kids come through from age 7 racing go-karts and they learn skills, they learn braking, they learn this. And I think that, those kids are probably better stepping up to be able to drive by doing that sort of thing. And I think that before a kid has given a licence, I think that the period and the driver training, I think we need to have basic driver training, where they go to a driver training school and taught things and what speed can do. And I mean, if that means showing them videos of an accident and what happens, I mean, so be it.
And now, of course, we've got 300 plus kilowatt Commodores. We've got 200 plus kilowatt Subaru WRXs and all the other cars, of course, that kids love to get into. I mean, would you be giving P-platers or young, fully licensed drivers full access to those vehicles?
Well, you mentioned my missus has got a WRX and I won't even let my son touch it, because, even though he is a very good driver, they get a couple of mates in the car. That's probably another big factor is, the amount of kids in the car and, they just stir them up and, so, yeah. But, no, I don't think, I think kids should be restricted to, 2 litres or whatever. And, for at least 2 years when they first obtain their licence. And I mean, if you do something wrong, you lose your licence, plain and simple, bang.
It's one of the things you're passionate about. You're also passionate about hunting and fishing.
Yes. I'm very, very partial to fishing, and but a lot more partial to pig hunting.
Really, more about the pigs?
Oh, yeah.
And do you do this? Are you one of these mad people who go out with the dogs and the knife like to just mano a piggo?
Certainly
take
do.
on the pig?
Certainly do. Yes. It's just a sport that I've done for a number of years. My youngest son he'd go out every day if he didn't have to work.
Can you do it all year round?
Yeah. Basically, this time of the year, a lot of the young boys hunt off the road with dogs.
Describe what's the ultimate in terms of pigging? What is the great sort of grail that you might be able to catch?
Well, when you start getting anything over 100 kilos, it's excitement plus, because you're talking a fairly big animal, and they get fairly upset, as you can imagine, if they got 2 or 3 dogs hanging off of them. And sometimes you can get in there and next thing you know, the dogs aren't hanging on to them because they've thrown them off and there's you and him.
So describe what's happening in the 60 seconds before you actually... I'm imagining you somehow sort of do the flying mattress and leap on top of the pig. Describe what happens in that 60 seconds.
In that 60 seconds is basically the dogs of holding the pig. There's numerous methods. Some guys like to grab the back leg and tip the pig over and basically, with the dogs holding him, and then basically heart lung him. Some guys actually straddle them, leg each side sitting on top of them basically, and heart lung them. There's
what sort of noises are emanating from this scenario?
Well, that depends on what you've got, whether it's a sow or a boar. Sows scream, boars don't make much noise, but they can get awfully aggro.
How do you do it?
I'm sort of stand on top of them.
Straddle them.
Yeah.
And are there many pieces that have been removed from you by angry pigs?
No, thank God. I had one close call where I actually tripped over and sort of fell backwards because the pig threw the dog off. I only had one dog. And he come at me, and as I went back, I sort of tripped over an ant mound, and he actually come on top of me. And I, at the split second, as he dropped his head, I pushed him off, and then the dog grabbed him again. But that's the closest one I've had, yeah.
And I've read a couple of copies of Bacon Busters magazine and Boars and Babes. Are
Yeah.
you one of these guys who likes to get out, you've got the thrill of the kill sort of coursing through your veins, and then you invite your wife to take off almost all of her clothes and squat on top of the pig so that you can take a photo for publication in a national magazine?
I wish.
Would your missus be up for that, do you think?
I wish. I'm trying to get my son to get some of his girlfriends to come out. It just won't happen. But you can dream. You can dream.
I've never understood it.
Yeah, I've never understand that. I've never seen, I've done a lot of pig hunting, but I've never actually seen a girl out in bikinis in the bush.
But the Bacon Busters has them in it.
Mate, they must be in Queensland, It must be Deliverance country or something, hey? I don't know. But yeah, I haven't seen too many out in the bush myself personally.
ABC Local Radio, around the territory, we're learning how to pig hunt this morning on the guest stream. Back with Greg Meyer after this.
The devastating bushfires in Victoria have left entire communities, families, pets and livestock displaced. ABC Local Radio is urging people to assist the victims of the fires by donating to the Red Cross Appeal.
The clothes and financial assistance is fantastic.
Donations can be made using a secure online donations form at redcross.org.au or by phoning 1800 811 700. Your support will be greatly appreciated.
Greg Meyer, we asked you earlier, one of the things that sort of fires you up, politics is the answer to part of that. You look like the sort of character that might at one time have stood for politics in the Northern Territory. Did you ever think about it?
Not even interested, mate. Not even interested. I mean, actually, I don't follow politics really at all. It's just that, my reading doesn't stem past the NT News. I mean, I'm not a big reader. I like to read the newspaper every day, and I like to watch the news at night. They're the sort of two things that I like to do as far as media goes. Politicians just surprise me how someone can come up with the best idea to solve a problem or, help people, and for some reason, the opposition party's got to find a problem with it. You know what I mean? Why can't one day they say, yeah, that's a good idea, let's do it, guys, But they don't. And you see some of these stupid statements made on television and radio, and you think, you got to be joking. People have actually voted these guys in, and they think like that. So it's just sort of a pet hate with me that, why can't they just agree that if something's good, it's good, and let's vote for it,
But your local politician would know you pretty well, I'm sure. You must tell them this from time to time.
No, I don't talk to them, mate. Because... I mean, when it comes to sort of politicians and that, yeah, I know a few, or I've met a few and all that, but I really don't have, to me, it's their job. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of, I'm not the one knocking on someone's door whinging because I want to get this fixed or that fixed or what, it doesn't really worry me, If I do go after somebody, if I do have a problem and, I go at it with a passion and a vengeance, but yeah, I've had the occasional run-in with sort of Telstra and, and I'm about to have another one, but these people make sort of billions of dollars profit, but, I've had a temporary phone line strung across the fence and I've got to shift it because it comes across the yard to mow, and it's been like that for months. But, they keep on cutting staff and doing all these, but you get, they're cutting the services as well. So people, put up with temporary phone lines or no phones or, that's just one example. But, yeah, the world's changing.
Good luck with that battle. Travel, you've done a bit of it. Where are you off to next?
I just come back from Malaysia last week. Most of the time I travel for business. Mainly,
when you say you travel for business, what, sourcing paving stock?
Oh, paving stock, anything. anything that I think I can sell. Or people, I've done a fair amount of trips to China, which is just
Looking
mind-blowing.
for paving stock.
Just looking for everything.
Like what sort of stuff?
You name it. You just see it. You walk around, you see something, and you source it. In China, it's like if anyone that's sort of, especially if you're sort of in the building industry or something like that. If you go to China and some of those places, like a kid in a candy store, it's huge. I mean,
What's an example of something that you sourced in China or Malaysia that wasn't pavers, that you didn't think you'd know about?
Well, just I source industrial equipment, all sorts of stuff. You name it. A friend of mine was importing everything from glass to stuff you use for cooking, and everything. There's just so much there. And to go there and see it is just, the size of the place is just phenomenal.
I always wonder about forming those relationships. You meet somebody there, you say, "Now, tell me, bro, you're going to deliver this back to my address in Darwin. That's what's going to happen. Here's the money. I'm paying for it." And then you've got to trust them to do it.
Yeah, well, we have a guy in China that does all that for us. He makes sure that the quality's there and the stuff's loaded and all that. Yeah, people have had bad experiences, but if you do foolish things, you can expect to get burnt, So, but yeah, no, I've had no bad experiences. So,
how much longer are you going to be in the paving game for?
Oh, I don't know.
Are you one of those guys looking forward to retirement life on the golf course?
Not really. Well, it did come as a fleeting thing, and my wife will slap me. But anyway, I bought a caravan, paid $60,000 for a caravan.
Teardrop shaped?
No, a bit flashier than that, this one. And I've had it now, I think, about 9 months. And only 3 weeks ago, we did its first trip. We took it to Catherine and back again for a test run.
Wow. Top speed attained?
Oh, yeah. No, it's just cruised along. Just cruised along.
Good.
Yeah, just cruised along. But, yeah, so it's sort of still sitting. It's sitting in under the shed, and I've used it once. But, I'll get there one day.
Good
I'll
on
get
you.
there one day.
Greg, it's been great to have you in the guest room.
No
Thanks
worries,
heaps
thank
for
you.
coming in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You tell a great story, and it sounds like you're having a good time.
No worries.
Greg Meyer in the guest room.